Mark Gagan, and you're listening to a special episode of the Voice of Insurance podcast, produced in association with VIPR. Today's guests are Paul Templar, CEO, and Sebastian Prosser, Head of Account Management at insurance technology solutions specialist VIPR. VIPR started out in the London market 14 years ago. From day one, its core offering was to provide a software solution to the endless administrative problem of the ingestion and checking of data in the delegated authority space. With around 40% of the business at Lloyd's transacted this way, it started life in a very fertile environment that was drowning in a mass of spreadsheets, emails, and stray documents. Today, it has grown enormously to be the largest player in this segment, with over 400,000 bordereaux processed annually, relating to around £5 billion of gross premium. This business is at the real coalface of digitisation in our industry, and its development is following a ruthless logic. If you can ingest, verify and cleanse insurance data on a large scale, the next step is to start to analyse that data and gain genuine insights into the business you're writing. And once you can do all this, you can also speed up the process of onboarding new partners from a compliance perspective. My chat with Paul and Seb comes as VIPR is making large strides internationally into the US and European markets on the back of significant new blue-chip investment. With digital initiatives gaining traction and prominence all over the insurance world, it's an exciting time for the market and for VIPR. Here we talk about the prospects for a far more efficient, digital and data-driven marketplace, the world of insurance software ecosystems, and the exciting expansion opportunities opening up for VIPR and its clients. Paul and Seb are great company, and I highly recommend this episode to anyone looking to learn how to climb the first rung of the digital ladder. Enjoy the podcast. Paul and Seb, welcome to the Voice of Insurance.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Why don't you briefly introduce yourselves? But VIPR, it's been on a really interesting journey. Well, actually, 13, 14 years now. It's evolved tremendously in that time. Introduce yourselves and then tell us the story of that development and where you're heading now.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm Paul Templar. I'm the CEO at VIPR. Yeah, I mean, the company has evolved tremendously. We started the business back in 2009.
And you were there from the beginning?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I know I don't look that old, but yeah. And back then we were really interested in focusing on bordereaux management. And the principal driver behind that was the new Solvency II regulation that was kicking around at the time. And there's a real focus on gathering data for delegated underwriting.
I remember I spent a huge amount of time as a journalist writing about the gathering storm of Solvency II.
That's right. Then it all fizzled out for a little bit.
Yes. Well, then we can have the UK version of Solvency coming through. That I'm sure that will cause new little unintended consequences as well.
Indeed. Yeah, so we were focusing on the bordereaux management side of things, that data gathering, and we were really successful at it. We were focusing predominantly on the Lloyd's market at the time. That was our key focus. Became very successful at that. But over the years, we've managed to expand what we do. And today, it's not really just about gathering the data, but it's what you do with that data once you've gathered it. And a big part of our business today is the analytical side of things. So actually looking at that data, making some sensible underwriting decisions off the back of it, and really understanding the information that's coming through in a much more in-depth way.
What was your background before VIPR?
So I was in technology before this. So I worked with Richard, Bob Brown at a previous business they had.
They're the other founders.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So they had a business called MoneyNet, which was the very first finance comparison website ahead of Money Supermarket.
Excellent.
So yeah, I ran the technology for them. And then Bob had a background in the Lloyd's market. He was a Lloyd's broker for many, many years. I had some really good contacts, and they were constantly asking him to help them solve some problems they had in the market. And eventually he succumbed, and we decided to start VIPR.
So Seb, how did you come to join the business?
So I've actually joined just over 2.5 years ago. My role has essentially evolved pretty much when I joined as a business analyst, working predominantly on the analytical platform that Paul mentioned. And my role has essentially progressed into now a kind of head of account management role, where I essentially oversee the 46 clients that we have, but primarily focusing on how they can best optimize the platform with the analytical tool.
Yeah, because the business has already evolved even in that time, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So why don't you just give us an overview of your main products?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. So I guess the product we're best known for is Intrali. So Intrali is our bordereaux management tool. The simple idea behind that is that data's flowing into the market in lots of different shapes and sizes. Intrali allows our customers to standardize the data into a single format, along the way doing some very comprehensive validation checks on that data to make sure that it's fit and proper, ultimately storing that in a database. Around sort of the edges of that, if you like, at the front end, we have a portal. The portal's designed really for two mechanisms. One is to allow our customers to very simply gather information from the third parties they're dealing with. So simple drag and drop interface, but also
drop their horrible spreadsheets into it.
We love spreadsheets. Yeah, no, absolutely right. So they can drop those spreadsheets in. And for those that are more tech savvy, we also have API capability on that as well.
So you can really plug in properly into the systems.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about Journey later on. And then, as we mentioned before, there's a very good analytical capability that sits over the top of our cloud data warehouse proposition. So once that data has been cleansed through Intrali, goes into a cloud data warehouse, and then we've worked very hard to build a very sophisticated reporting model and reports off the back of that help our customers not only understand from an underwriting perspective what their data's about, but also from an operational point of view, how that's working. And then the final product that we have is a product called Intarga. Intarga's an onboarding and due diligence platform. So there's a lot of noise in the market at the moment about supply chains and sort of protection of suppliers and what would happen if those suppliers weren't trading anymore. And what our product does is it really helps with that onboarding mechanism. So proper due diligence is being done on the various third parties that our customers are working with.
So it's a lot of core customers. Is it nearly always an MGA, or it's anybody who's doing a lot of delegated business?
Yeah, so primarily we work with businesses that are receiving data. So of course, insurers and reinsurers are there, but also brokers receiving data, fronting carriers, and certainly some of the MGAs that are perhaps sub-delegating
and underwriters
business.
doing a lot of delegated, yes.
Correct, yeah.
So again, you're helping them to validate with that other product within Targa. You're helping them to jump through a lot of those hoops because there's a huge amount of demand on them on compliance and everything these days.
Absolutely right. Yes, it's essential that our customers know who they are working with and making sure they're fit and proper organisations.
What about the scale where you are sort of as a business? I mean, how many of you are there and your customers? Maybe give us an idea of sort of how much GWP is coming through. It's probably difficult for you to ascertain all of that actually. But anyway, give us a rough idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's fair to say we're the largest supplier of software of our type in the market. So we work with, as Seb mentioned, about 46 customers at the moment. Our business is about 40 people strong. We estimate that there's somewhere in the region of 350 to 400,000 bordereaux. So individual files going through the platform across all of our customers, which is, I guess...
Per year,
yeah, which is in a region of £5 billion plus worth of GWP.
And where are most of you based?
So the vast majority of us are based in the UK, in and around London. Of course, as with most organisations with COVID, we've got a sort of a hybrid working model, people working from home as well as within the office. You tend to work quite a bit in the office.
Absolutely, yeah. And in terms of the kind of existing client base that we've got, you know, everyone is pretty much in the square mile. So it's great for me to be in the office 5 days a week and bouncing between offices. But
obviously you've got that core where you started in the London market with Robert Bound and his friends asking him to help them out.
Yeah.
That's a very Lloyd's kind of story, actually. But obviously you've come a long way from that. And how international are you? And presumably you plan to be even more.
Yeah, absolutely. We really do see ourselves as an international organisation now. So as you rightly say, the majority of our customers are still in the UK, but we now have 7 customers in North America and 3 customers in Europe. And they range in size from smaller startup entities right the way through to tier 1 North American carriers.
So you've got a really flexible set of services and products. It doesn't really matter what size you are. A lot of these people have got a lot of the same problem.
I mean, I think you've probably seen the same, haven't you? That the product crosses boundaries and territories really well. It is a similar story wherever we're going. And the problem is the same. There's a lot of data that's flying around the market in non-straight through formats. So, you know, a lot of spreadsheets, CSV files, those sorts of things. And the problem's being solved currently in a range of ways that are just not optimal.
I think that's probably the biggest surprise to us, wasn't it? Is the kind of whether it's US program business or European scheme business or kind of Lloyd's business, everyone seemed to have the same underlying issue of lots of bordereaux formats coming in, difficulty cleaning it.
It's exactly the same problem. Doesn't matter where you go.
Yeah, just different terminology.
Absolutely. And it was really surprising when we moved into new territories. So, for example, North America, our initial impression was that there is bound to be businesses out there that are solving this problem and, you know, light years ahead in terms of they've been doing it a long time. Turns out that there really isn't. Our technology has been really well accepted in overseas territories. And it would seem that the way that the problem was being solved is through either throwing people at the problem or just very fragile, homegrown solutions that don't quite do the job properly.
Throwing people at problems is a very expensive thing to do. Usually they don't like it very much. That's really good. In London, we've spent, at least the last 30 years beating ourselves up about our technology, perhaps always thinking it's substandard or it's never quite as good as everybody else, or it's not as good as we've always wanted it to be. But that's a good news story. So you've got USPs. So there probably are competitors out there, but what are the VIPR USPs when you're going out to those new customers and you're saying that we can do this?
Really, we're focusing on 3 core pillars when we talk to our customers. So the first piece is where we start and what we've always done, which is to look at process efficiencies, operational efficiencies. So what tooling and help can we provide to our customers to make it really easy to gather the information that they need, to process it really efficiently, and to get it into that single common consistent format, and importantly have a data set ultimately that they can rely on to use for other purposes. So that operational efficiency piece is something that we've always been very keen on. The risk and compliance piece really is the second piece of the puzzle. So what we're looking at there is, particularly if you look at the bordereaux side of things, making sure that the business that's being written sits in line with the terms and conditions of the contract that the third parties are on. So is the business being written in the right territories, in the right time frames? Are the commissions correct? Are the limits correct? All those things. And then the third piece, and this is really one of the most important elements, is to do with what is then done with that data. So the analytical proposition. So when we've processed the data, what can we gather from that data to help that business run more efficiently? So if we can improve our customers' bottom line by 1 or 2%, it's a huge amount of money for a lot of our customers.
On 5 billion, that's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. It's an awful lot.
In fact, it always surprised me when you have a big hurricane or something. As a journalist, we always knew there was a story. There was always going to be at least one binder that had gone completely rogue. And everyone thought it was doing SME business in Oklahoma. And it turned out it was writing Florida coastal just because, it could, because people hadn't really noticed that it was back in the old days. So you only find out about a year later. And of course, so you're really at the cutting edge of just checking that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Totally. And if you think about it, one of our larger customers might be processing more than 1,000 bordereaux per month. And to try and actually do something with that manually and to check that sensibly without a system.
I think it comes back to that piece of, how do our clients show that they can establish a good level of control across that delegated business, as using Intago or Intrali, but now we're shifting the needle away from back office processing to, does your DA underwriter actually know how much exposure they have in certain areas, or is the MGA writing them enough business, actually going into kind of some more thought-provoking conversations.
I think we'll talk about that in a minute, but before that, what sort of time and cost savings are people making? Just the simple front end of thinking, I can free up my people to do other stuff. They don't need to be doing all this.
I think that's exactly the right mindset. So if you're looking at those 3 pillars, that first one of process efficiencies, of course, the idea is that we can provide the tooling that means that they can deploy less people to doing the manual work that they were previously doing. So there's absolutely a very clear return on investment just from a people point of view, if nothing else. But I think the real power is coming from this analytical proposition where if you can look at that and say, actually, if I did this thing better, that will improve my loss ratio, whatever it might be, and therefore the bottom line looks a lot better.
So it sounds like you have a reasonably easy sell on the first end because you can sort of say with quite a lot of confidence that it'll pay for itself pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, then you've got the added value to say it'll pay for itself pretty quickly. But you're going to go into a whole new world once you've done this. And you can start to really understand and help better underwrite your delegated books, right?
I think we were in a really fortunate position having Intrali already. So, most conversations we're having saying, okay, insights is great, but we were relying on a good data capture tool. And, is the quality of the data good enough to do some quality reporting?
And you already know it is because you helped ingest it in the first place.
Precisely that. So we were in a really, really fortunate position to then bolt on insights after it and say, okay, we should try and really exploit the analytical proposition.
That's the really interesting part where, you're starting to fill up a data lake, a timely lake of data as well, where you're actually seeing close to real time. First of all, I'll ask you actually, how close are we getting to real time in some of these things? The lovely thing would be to have an underwriter sitting in London or wherever and saying, well, this is what my delegated relationship has done today. What's it done in the last 5 minutes?
Totally. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you think of the current state, so if the process is a monthly bordereaux is produced, that's going to be produced and issued maybe 30 days after month end. it's email to a carrier.
No, you already bring back very painful memories of my own Spanish binders business and just trying to get the accounts through.
Oh, totally. Lucky if that was 30 days.
Yeah.
No, it was never 30. It was
No,
120. It was already then 2 quarters after the quarter.
Oh, exactly right. So, today you could be looking at data that's maybe 90 days old, and you're making underwriting decisions based upon, something that's a quarter ago. Moving to that real-time data exchange means that you get that data now less than 24 hours old. So you're able to make those decisions much, much faster and take action if you see trends happening that are not what you want. And that journey is absolutely real. You probably saw recently we announced a partnership with Insurity. They provide a lot of the MGA systems for US MGAs.
Right.
And we're already working on a project where we're looking to take data from their system and push it straight into one of our customers' platforms.
And so the underwriters getting those insights. And also, what about things like aggregation you mentioned? So again, you're worried about your Florida ag or whatever, earthquake, etc.
Yeah.
You can map that on to those people's, or you can get that ingested into their systems, whatever else they're using, the models they're using.
The whole idea of kind of the delegated bordereaux or binder bordereaux coming through has actually opened us to SOVs and things like that, receiving different types of bordereaux.
SOVs?
Schedule of values bordereaux.
I know what that is. Yes, I'm always on a mission to try and clarify those 3-letter abbreviations before we get too many in any one podcast. Otherwise, the notes section gets really full.
So we're seeing a growing demand for things like that. And you're absolutely right. That idea of having an MGA based out in Oklahoma, binding a risk on the same day, and that being pushed through into an underwriter in London, seeing that pop up on their screen, the analytics updates real time.
Yeah, you're right. And if you think about sort of cat events, the open market's probably got a view on potential claims really quite quickly, whereas you're looking at that 90-day lag. So someone's asking the question, what's our exposure to this hurricane that's just come through? We'll tell you in 90 days.
Yeah, and you've got your treaty renewal coming up as well. Yeah. So, your outwards managers going to be on your back as well, saying, what have you been doing? And presumably, up until now, the delegated department is always absolutely in the doghouse when it comes to the reinsurance guys, because it's like they're never going to have the same data that everyone else has got.
Totally. And if you think about it realistically, around 40% of the business Lloyd's do is on a delegated basis. So it's a huge chunk of business.
Absolutely. It's massive, isn't it? How do you get all this stuff to actually work? Because it's fantastic talking about the products and services and what they can do. How do you do it? How did you get it? You haven't actually got a pointy head, Paul, but I just think you probably, somebody does.
I normally wear a hat, so you can't tell. Yeah, I mean, we've got a fantastic team behind us. So I guess there's two things. First of all, we've been doing this for some time. We've got the lion's share of the market that we're working with, and the combination of the skill set that we have, but also the input that our customers are bringing to us through user groups and special interest groups and other sort of communication steps, day-to-day interactions with our customers. It really helps inform how the product evolves and what features we bring in, as well as things like compliance issues that come along that we need to sort of help our customers with.
Also, I suppose you've got that maturity as well, because you've got regular customer base, you've got regular income, you can make those investments.
Absolutely right.
This is something you need to do, and you want to develop this product further.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think something that really helped to springboard that back in 2020, we were backed by attending private equity, and that really helped us to sort of shape the company to where it is today and to drive it even further forward, bring out products like Insights, which has taken a lot of people power to sort of work out what the data model looks like, what reports we should be. And again, we've done that in collaboration with our customers to make sure we're delivering what they need, not what we think they need. Yes,
and certainly I saw on your website, I was reading about, that you've made some investments there. Some of this analysis is algorithmic, and perhaps, I don't know, AI is sort of buzzword of the moment. So you're incorporating some of that into those insights there.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of some of the technology we're using, obviously leveraging some third-party technology as well. So Snowflake being a large US cloud-based data warehouse, so we're kind of leveraging leading tech in that space, and then also looking at obviously things like AI and ML in kind of Power BI and seeing how we could best apply it, because obviously what we don't want to be doing is just introducing it for the sake of it. Ultimately, there needs to be a real world example for it.
Do you think there will be some useful example? We're talking about AI a lot, and actually I'm looking at what it could do for a journalist, and some quite useful things you might be able to do, but it doesn't seem to be quite there yet.
For us, potentially, it could be kind of predictive analytics, particularly within the DA space. There's a huge amount of data being collected by our carriers. So if you've got 5 years worth of bordereaux data, binder data, could we then start look to forecast and binder renewal process? Could you start looking at forward projections and things like that?
So you could be saying, you've done this much in the first quarter, then I think you're going to end up here. based on previous experience.
That's absolutely one use case. The other is maybe asking questions of the data. So rather than having specific reports that are pre-canned, actually...
Or are you doing something wrong?
Yeah,
Have you suddenly become the cheapest one in the market? And all the brokers know. There's always that worry, isn't it? So we're having a really good quarter. Why is that?
Yes. Stop that instantly.
And any other things, when your top customers, the ones that you interact with the most, are pitching you to say, this is the problem I really want you to solve. What are the ones you're putting on the table and, that are competing for budget funds?
I think the straight-through processing piece is one of the biggest projects. And as I say, we're a long way through that project already, and we're actually going into test mode with customers on that at the moment. And that's working really well for us. The analytical piece, we want to keep on pushing forward with. We think that is going to become more and more valuable for our customers.
Do you think we're going to get rid of spreadsheets? Because when we go to a fully digital market, one presumes that it's just going to be bits and bytes flying around and we won't really need CSV files anymore. We'll never probably cure ourselves of our addiction of them. But maybe for some very small, low volume things, maybe we won't bother.
I think you're right. I think if you're a startup that's particularly focused on tech and they want to be very, very efficient, then today we can help them to put business through the platform in real time. That is fantastic. I think for those companies that are currently operating on spreadsheet, bordereaux or the like, we can definitely support that model today. That's our bread and butter. But we can also help them on that journey towards the more real-time data processing. And it's certainly in our customers' interest to get towards that point, because ultimately they can get that data in a much more timely manner. They can make quicker decisions which are going to impact their profitability.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Obviously, speed is always going to be of the essence once we're talking about APIs, but data quality is still a massive thing. Obviously, my day-to-day interactions are with a lot of our existing clients, and the big focus across a lot of the DA operations teams is still how can we get to a better position of data completeness, data quality, data accuracy. So, talking about the analytics and the APIs, AI is all great. It's really, really exciting stuff, but we've still got that kind of notorious problem of the data coming through on the border, whether it be a spreadsheet or an API or an email.
So Intrali is never going to be sort of put out to pasture.
I know.
It sounds like.
I don't think anytime soon.
No. Obviously, we've had adoption of Accord. Now, I'll have to remember the abbreviation. It's Global Large Commercial and Reinsurance. Is that
good.
Is that, have I got it in the right order? Probably on the wrong order. Anyway, that'll be one for the notes. But Accord standards adopted in the London market. Is that the kind of eureka moment for some of this to say, why don't just everyone adopt these standards? Because that's what we're doing. We're doing large commercial generally.
Yeah, no, look, we're partners with Accord. We're part of the Accord community. We're very supportive. The guys are doing a fantastic job on Blueprint 2 and some of the CDR, the common data record stuff they're doing for the open market. I think the challenge is not so much what standard we use, because I think everyone agrees that is a great standard to be working to, but rather how can the third parties, the MGAs, the cover holders, the TPAs, DCAs actually comply with those standards. So are their systems that they're using today capable of working in that way? And a lot of the cases and a lot of the answer to that is no, that their systems can't cope with producing that particular output, or the cost involved in adapting their systems to meet those standards is actually onerous for them. So tools like ours are really good at taking whatever format that data can come out at and then translating it into the desired format.
Do you think we'll ever kill off the bordereaux? I mean, if someone's running something fully digitally, fully straight through, then actually the bordereaux is going to be for the carrier, ultimate paper providers. They can just download it whenever they want, create their own management information, MI, around it. They won't need to be told anything because they can just look. That's our kind of nirvana state.
Yeah. It is. Look, I think where our focus is cleansing the data and analysing the data. But also, we talked earlier about the cloud data warehouse that we have.
Yeah.
That also becomes a great mechanism for sharing the data. So, as you rightly say, rather than processing a spreadsheet to output a spreadsheet to share, why not process a spreadsheet to put in a very comprehensive data model, then invite other parties in to get the data that they're allowed to access? And it becomes a much better point.
Because you can play with it, you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, absolutely right. So there's definitely benefits in that. I think cover holders, MGAs in particular, range in size. Some are sort of two-person operations and are working out of a shed somewhere. And asking them to comply with certain standards is going to be very, very hard for them. In fact, they're probably producing the bordereaux manually right now by typing stuff into a spreadsheet.
Yeah, but then if they're a small business, it's not that onerous. It's not like me, just adding up my invoices at the end of the years for the tax man. It's not very complicated.
No, exactly. So to ask them to buy a system that will produce in a certain standard, there's really not that much need.
One of the interesting things recently has been the amount of kind of risk level data that some of the carriers are requesting, whether it be coming from the underwriters or the actuaries themselves for kind of reserving purposes, whatever it may be. But the amount of data now that's trying to be captured from bordereaux in particular, whether it be, like property, some of the bordereaux are now going up to kind of 200 columns on a spreadsheet, which can be
that's
pretty
crazy.
difficult.
So really getting into what type of roof it's got and what kind of foundations, how far it's from a river.
Stories and
But stuff, before, I'm just going back to my Spanish one, where it just said one word, and it said the name of the company and it said how much limit there was, a bit of premium commission. I mean, that was about it. And you could ask, but it would take you about 2 weeks to tell you actually what that entry was.
Yeah. One of the things that we're also looking to do with this warehouse that we're kind of exploring at the moment is how we could potentially augment the bordereaux data using third-party data sets. So obviously this idea of, if the MGA isn't able to provide...
If you've got the zip code, you can find out an awful lot of stuff. And
things like the kind of distance to coast, things like that, these are, or kind of cresta zones, they are publicly available, ultimately, or can be provided through Snowflake, so we can plug in and augment the bordereaux data. So entering a different remit.
Something that's also very much in vogue. Well, you already mentioned one collaboration you've got, but you've joined others insurance ecosystems. Is that the way of the future? And maybe you've got your own ecosystems as well, and then your ecosystem will then be part of someone else's ecosystem. It's almost like sort of hiving in interplanetary systems or interlocking in different ways. But it does seem to be the way things are going.
Yeah, I think there were two important decisions that we made within the last couple of years. One was that it's not always best to build every bit of tech you can possibly need. So that's why we're leveraging it.
You won't suddenly start doing a policy administration system.
Well, that's it.
What's the
But
point?
also, the best in breed analytical tool is Power BI. We're not going to go out and build an analytical tool. We'll just use what is best in breed. And the second thing is to do with the partnerships. A lot of our customers are using similar tools. And the estate was that almost they were expected to be system integrators. So they would buy bits of software from different vendors and somehow be expected to plug these things together and make them work. And we just feel that by working with other established system providers and being able to provide pre-configured connectors, Advantage goes one example where we can plug into their ecosystem very easily. Some of our customers are going to be using their tool sets already.
Obviously, any regular listeners know that I know quite a lot about Advantage Go because they've been sponsoring the main podcast for quite a while now.
Yeah, so that's a no-brainer. So it means that our customers can get on with doing what they do best, and we can offer those integrations sort of natively.
And sometimes even there's the ability to, not necessarily competing, but there are competing systems. And it's almost a recognition that it's the client who chooses, it's the client choice. And we don't really know. We all think our things are the best. Or sometimes we know our thing is better, but actually that doesn't necessarily mean that the client's going to buy it because they've maybe got a fantastic relationship with another company that sells something that's quite similar, probably does the same job, but the user interface isn't even half as good. But they don't mind because they've been working with that person for 30 years. They've always delivered for them. Other factors that we forget that are really important from a client perspective. So what I like from the outside saying to these ecosystems is we're actually remembering that it's our customers far more important than all of us, and we should make them happy, and the happier they are, the more they're going to use our stuff.
Well, what's helped us in certain cases is actually having people who are on the other side of the fence joining us in a kind of technology platform. So having their expertise, joining us as business analysts and who actually were on the ground using the platforms and day-to-day experiences can actually input and drive our kind of decision-making where the platform goes as well. So.
And also, the other thing is just making it really easy for them to get on with what they do. And they don't have to maintain the integration parts. They don't have to sort of build rubber bands between different systems and then keep updating them as all those different parts of the systems update and renew or get replaced. It must be keeping that onus on you, the software companies, who are far more expert at this. And of course, you're going to maintain that you can drive that investment. You've got the investment, you've got the income to be able to maintain those APIs and those connections that are vital to make sure that you're part of the chain.
We're adding value ultimately.
You're adding value. And you don't have to worry about where it came from before it comes to you. Neither do you have to worry about where it goes afterwards.
That's right.
You just have to do your bit really well and make sure it's connected, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely right. So yeah, as I say, partnerships like Insurity, Advantage, Go, Guidewire, these are all great things. They're tools that are well adopted, and it means that our customers can not worry about those rubber bands so much.
As a business, I mean, we've been talking about you transforming, but I think it sort of takes you to another league where you've had this really big scale-up investment from Tenzing, global name in venture finance. Tell us about that. I mean, from the outside, that's a sort of wow moment. You think, wow, that does put you in a different league.
I think certainly from my point of view, what's really interesting is you grow the business to a certain size and then you just need that little bit of help to get it up to the next level and beyond. And what we certainly found with working with Tenzing and the team there is that they've really been able to help us, not so much with the domain knowledge because, we hold that, but with the business knowledge to understand the things that we can do to make the business better, to grow it, to improve it, and to just make us a bigger business than we were to start with.
When was it they came in?
2020.
So not long ago.
That's right.
And what about your own philosophy of this business and where do you want to take it? And, you're an entrepreneur. I always like to ask entrepreneurs what sort of entrepreneur they are, because some entrepreneurs sort of want to go on forever and they must want to have their name above the door. You don't have your name above the door, but you've got VIPR above the door. And they must want, that VIPR will become the Microsoft of this. Maybe you already are, actually. But other people have a different idea that they'll get to a certain point and they'll just buy a yacht or something. Or that some people like solving one problem and they like to move on and solve another problem. Once they've proven that they can solve this problem, they lose interest and they actually want to go and do something else. Where are you on that scale?
I could change my name, I suppose, and I would have my name above the door, but I'm not looking to move on from this anytime soon. I really enjoy what I'm doing here. I've been doing this since 2009. There's a long way for this business to go. We've been incredibly successful in the UK. We're starting to have good success in the overseas markets, but there's still so much to play for. And I'd like to see the business become the global lead in the DA space for data exchange and analytics. That's really where we want to be. And we're well on the way to that journey.
It takes 13, 14 years to get to this point. And now you can actually, because you've got the infrastructure and now you've got the investment, you can really take off now.
I think you're right. Some might say, what took you so long to get here?
It's always slow at the beginning, isn't it? It's like a snowball. You've got to roll it. It's tiny at the beginning and then eventually it gets quite big and then it just rolls off.
It is. And I think the more mature as an organisation you become, your objectives, your targets become clearer and clearer and you're able to execute on those much more efficiently.
And then you really know what you're good at as well.
Absolutely.
You know where to go and where you're focused.
You know what your sweet spot is. And what you find is that you start off with a core thing. For us, that was bordereaux management. And you don't move dramatically away from that, but you find ways to expand on that subject and offer a much more comprehensive product set.
It's very logical to go from bordereaux management into that data management. Absolutely. And understanding and insights.
Yeah.
And then the compliance.
Yeah, absolutely right.
I wonder if there's anything else you want to add, because I think we've discussed everything.
And nothing to add other than say thank you so much for having us on. It's been good fun. Yeah. And really do appreciate it.
It's been brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, don't forget to subscribe or leave a like or a review or recommendation on whatever podcast platform you used to access this programme. These really help get the word out. Before we go, just a quick reminder that advertising slots are available here and in other places in the Voice of Insurance podcasts. Podcasting is the fastest growing medium and attracts a high quality audience of key decision makers. It's also an intimate medium where you, the listener, are right in the room with me and the interview subjects. Needless to say, that means it's a great way of getting your message out directly to an audience because you know you've got their full attention. It's also very cost effective. So get in touch with Mark at thevoiceofinsurance.com to find out how you could be speaking directly to the industry. Voice of Insurance is produced by me, Mark Gagan. Music was written by Anna Gagan and produced by Carlos Gagan. Check out more podcasts and written comment pieces at www.thevoiceofinsurance.com.